Okie dokie, my friends. So here are just some thoughts for the SDI stations on Thursday. So I was thinking that we could work from this 30A1, interpreting and demonstrating products of whole numbers. This is what we've been using in the SDI and co-teaching when we've gone to schools recently, so we're going to keep it the same. And this is a nice target or standard that works really well with what we're trying to convey. So, interpreting and demonstrating the products of whole numbers. I think there's value potentially in having this page from the standards printed, so the admin can see the connection between the standard and how we're going to use the underpinning. So the underpinning we're going to follow today is this 2OA4, and maybe we print that out as well just to kind of show both. And like really focusing on where we're using these clarifications as our floor essentially to teach the standard. So students use models for multiplication standard situations. We're going to be using that concrete to the semi-concrete to the abstract, and we're going to be thinking about 5 times 7 is the total number of objects in 5 groups of 7 objects each, right? So like using our strategies to kind of represent that and have students visualize it and show kind of the progression of that. So the gen ed teacher is just going to be teaching straight to the standard. Gonna have to teach some vocab and the connection between how we got from the repeated addition to multiplication, like that transition from repeated addition, having equal groups, trying to find the total amount, to how we can represent that with multiplication now. So here's some vocabulary here. We have factors. Factors are numbers that we multiply to another number to find a product. Product is the answer to a multiplication problem, but it's we want to say like it's more than that. To have a product, we know we need to have equal groups, and we're trying to find the total amount of objects that we're counting in those equal groups. So that's kind of like the big idea of multiplication, is that we want to connect. That's different than division, which we don't need to talk about that. I'm just kind of nerding out for a minute. But like multiplication is when we're trying to determine the total amount of whatever we're counting, but what we're counting must be in those equal groups. The gen ed teacher is going to show them the structure of a factor times a factor is equal to a product, or you can also reverse it and just show that you may be able to write it like this too, because that equal sign being on the other side is very challenging for students. So show it both ways from the beginning. All right, so that's the gen ed teacher, just straight to the standard. Then starting with the low, this is where that SDI is going to be provided, and we're really hitting that underpinning hard. So we're going to go from the concrete to the semi-concrete to the abstract. We're going to need manipulatives, whiteboards, probably some pictures of some real world scenarios. So I know I have a picture of a carton of eggs that represent, 2 equal groups of 2. So that may be something good to use. But we may want to start out with what are equal groups? What does equal mean? Make equal groups, demonstrate that. And then we're going to do that with the manipulatives. Then we're going to transition to build the array, which is just equal groups arranged in rows and columns. And then from there, the students are going to draw the array on the whiteboards and then create the repeated addition sentences. So that's the concrete to the semi-concrete to the abstract there. And that's probably all that we're going to have time to hit in that station, and that's the max of what a third grader could probably do in a station, take in a station anyway. But we want to use, focus on the equal groups and refining the total amount, because that's the idea that's going to lead us to that multiplication. The medium station, I think, is the hardest. Lots of discernment required, because these kids are going to be on a variety of different skill levels. I would start, for our purposes Thursday, we're going to start with the underpinning, because that's often what happens is I would teach the underpinning to that medium group as well. So start with the 20A4, the equal groups, repeated addition to find the total amount, and then discuss with the participants in our training that from there, if the kids have a solid understanding, then you might move on to the vocabulary. We're going to pre-teach some of this vocab, understand how those equal groups from the underpinning kind of have a grasp on the intro to that vocab. Can be very helpful. So that's the trajectory that I would take. So use the underpinning, pre-teach vocab for whoever's teaching this station, and the connection between the repeated addition and the vocabulary. So if we think about this, we might say, okay, if I have 2 plus 2 plus 2, how many equal groups of 2 are there? Well, there are 3 equal groups of 2. And we don't exactly have to show them what this means yet, because that's going to kind of take away from the core, the Gen Ed teacher's lesson. But we can kind of show them that 3 and 2 are factors, because these are our groups, number of groups, and number of objects in each group. And kind of talk about, well, in second grade, and with addition, 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 6. That's the sum. But now in multiplication, we're going to show how that equals the product. But the difference is that when we're thinking about, addition, we could have 10 plus 5 equals 15. Well, these groups aren't equal, so we have to add. But if we have 5 plus 5 plus 5, 5, 5, and 5 are all equal. They're the same. If they're the same, we know we can translate that to a multiplication sentence. And I don't even think you have to. You don't even have to do this necessarily. You could, but just say if we have equal groups and we're trying to find a total amount, we can multiply. See what time shakes here and what discussion comes about. But I think that's the path that I would take with that middle group. With the high group, this is coming after you and the Gen Ed teacher have kind of given a thumbs up. We are in agreement that the students mastered the core lesson. These students can multiply, they understand multiplication from like a basic level, right? So then now we're going to try to deepen that understanding. So the enrichment task could be to give students a multiplication fact and have them create a scenario or story that matches. And I would keep the facts simple, because having them to apply it to real world scenarios is a high cognitive load. So we don't want to let the numbers be a barrier for that, because I really want to notice if they understand what's happening with multiplication. So you may keep 5s, 2s, 10s. That's a great place to start. And then you can increase complexity as you work with your students more. And then I would have them discuss, because we want to have students talking, share with their partners first, have them do a little understanding check there, and then discuss whole group. Something we may want to discuss with the administrators, people or participants in the training, is that showing them these pre-planned assessing question stems and the advancing question stems, and then us modeling some of them in our stations to show how we want to ask purposeful questions, which is math teaching practice 5, to promote mathematical discourse, math teaching practice 4. So building those in and showing how we can use those with special ed students and all students, but especially special ed students. Okay. And then I was also thinking for the independent station, we don't have to do this, we can just talk about it, but it might be something good. Have students sort real world scenarios, either on a Jamboard or in a card sort, to have them identify whether a question is an addition problem or a multiplication. So having them understand that, if I'm adding 213 plus 109 and I'm comparing that to a situation, so let's say we have 213 rocks, I find 109 more rocks. How many rocks do I have? Is that an addition problem versus I have 5 piles of rocks, there are 20 rocks in each pile? How many rocks do I have? That's going to be a multiplication problem. So have students recognizing what qualifies as an addition problem and what qualifies as a multiplication problem. That may be an idea we can show for an independent station, but I also thought we might be able to highlight the Read Write for Google text reader. If we put something on the computer, we can show them how that's promoting independence in the independent station. There's a pun for you today. So that's what I was thinking we could do with that. We don't have to. We might talk about it, how that would connect to the standard for that independent practice. We could talk about building it in a Jamboard, doing it like on paper, any of the things. So just throwing that thought out there, take it or leave it. So that's what I'm thinking. Looking forward to hearing your all's thoughts. If you hate it, that's great too. Talk to y'all soon.